Do you crave better self-esteem and confidence, but struggle to silence your anxiety, fears, and insecurities? If so, welcome to the sisterhood of fellow travelers on the path to reclaiming their self-confidence and happiness. I'm Jennifer DeBellis, award-winning author, speaker, and assault survivor. I spent the past few decades helping young women like you overcome fear, self-doubt, and trauma to reclaim their joy and self-worth. I cannot wait to share the secrets I learned on my own healing journey and help you restore your inner warrior as I show you the skills and tools you need to save your own broken world. If you're ready to empower your inner warrior to overcome fear, doubt, and anxiety, turn off those distractions and tune in to this episode. So welcome back to the Restore Your Inner Warrior show. Last week I launched a trailer that outlined the Restore Your Inner Warrior mission. One of the key points of that message was how living a life without passion and purpose lowers self-esteem and confidence. Today, I want to talk to you about what happens to our confidence and self-esteem when we strive for personal growth and search for our ultimate purpose and connection to something greater than ourselves. I know all too well how defeating it feels to not have a sense of purpose or direction, and I'm grateful to be able to share with you today some of my struggles and recent triumphs. I hope you walk away from today's episode feeling encouraged and supercharged to take those next steps toward identifying your purpose and tapping into the passion that will drive you toward achieving it. In today's episode, you'll gain a deeper understanding of how purpose fuels self-esteem and confidence. You'll hear about my recent revelation that reawakened my purpose walk, and you'll learn some strategies to awaken your own purpose and passion. So I want to start off by talking to you today about how we can often learn more through what doesn't work or what not to do than from what does work. Sort of like how trial and error leads us through what didn't work to try again and find what does. I've been meditating on this lack of purpose concept over the last month as we've been working through this series. And at the same time, I've been working on some of my PhD research and noticing some really interesting connections to living with purpose and the consequences of living without it. So operating with purpose guides us toward fulfillment and more meaningful experiences outside of ourselves. So I really want to distinguish that here right now, that I am talking about a very specific type of purpose and purpose plan. Operating with purpose also enhances our mental well-being. So that's also something to think about, where sometimes we start to feel like depressed or hopeless and we can't pinpoint it, and it's not really a mental illness type of a related thing. And a lot of times I've learned in my own experience that is a direct connection to not operating within my purpose, which I'm going to come back to in a few minutes and talk about a recent experience. There is also a part in this article that I was just reviewing the other day that warns about what living without direction or purpose leads to. And it was kind of frightening and a little bit alarming. It mentions that there's a potential for a new class of people who are devoid of personal, professional, spiritual value, who in return will then contribute nothing to society. And I'm not saying this to be insensitive or be mean. I'm saying it because it really raises a really interesting dilemma that we're headed toward that is going to affect the collective humanity. So this isn't just about like, oh, if I don't operate in my purpose, then, my life won't be fulfilling, my life won't be meaningful. But also we have to think about the larger picture, is that we cohabit this earth with other individuals who are on their own journeys, and their ability to thrive with purpose or not ever tap into their purpose somehow indirectly and directly will impact all of our lives. So that really struck me, that there will be such a class that is useless in their non-contribution to society. So the prediction here that this text made was that there will be individuals in this class of new humans who will be incapable of normal interactions with others. That's wild. We kind of already see that happening now. Like, I notice it in my classrooms. I notice it when I go out into public. I also notice it sometimes when I'm conducting business with other professionals, where, they're so out of touch with not just socializing, but having no sense of direction, no sense of, just pride in their existence and pride in operating or trying to operate in their purpose. And we're not designed that way. We're not designed to live in isolation without any sense of direction. And I'm not telling you that you can't choose that as a life. I'm going to tell you that that's really not living. It's kind of a joke that we have in our house here. I actually created these t-shirts that say, this is living and this is not living, because this was kind of like a household joke around the dining room table when my kids were growing up. And my husband would often make this comment that, Jen, this just isn't living. And my kids to this day joke around about it. But there's a little bit of seriousness in that expression that most of us can feel when we're not living with purpose. So the danger here is that as a collective of society, we will have to figure out how to make or get these other individuals to occupy their time and to find commitment. And on one side, that kind of sounds like adult babysitting. But on the other side, that kind of raises a whole bunch of other red flags for me, something that I talk a lot about with my own daughters, with some of my students, and really any time that I get a chance to talk about this kind of dangerous road that we're going down, not thinking for ourselves, not recognizing that we're kind of being spoon-fed certain information and we're kind of being dumbed down in some ways without really realizing that it's happening. It's this very slow swing in this different direction, and that if we're not careful, we'll wind up a collective society that is very easily influenced and told just what to believe. And that's really scary. Like if you study history and you study different cultures that happened in, it doesn't end well for society. It only ends well for those in power. And so on one side, I'm constantly warning people like the dangers, like don't, for instance, use AI. Don't seek instant gratification. Don't just go through the motions of things to just be like, check that off. Like I have to get this done. Like college shouldn't be, for instance, something that I just have to get through it so that I can go on with my life. Like college is supposed to be this very all-encompassing experience where you immerse yourself into certain things that all sort of work together and sometimes individually to help you grow and figure out what it is that you are going to do with the next seasons of your life, and to ultimately, in a lot of capacities, find your purpose or find some of the smaller purposes that you're going to fulfill that are leading you towards some of the larger purposes that you have, outcomes and goals that you have set. And there's a real danger there to just treat these things like they're transactional or not even realize what you're missing out on. Like you just think like, oh, I've got to get through this. And it's a really long season. Like college is a really long season. Even if you do it super quick and you go in the summers and you start early in high school, you're still looking at 3+ years. That's just to get an undergraduate degree. And then some, if nothing gets in your way and all these things, like that's part of the experience. So if you think about what I'm saying here has a far larger implication of life really sucking because you're making it suck by the mindset that you have in just treating it like it's very transactional. There's a truth, though, in this outcome if we continue to just go down this path as a culture, because it has predictable consequences for this chain of cause and effect activities. And as I mentioned, I see it in some of my students, particularly when they contribute little to nothing in small group activities. So I expect that there will be students who have been broken down throughout their academic career and they're just petrified of raising their hand in whole class discussions. But usually when you start to break people into smaller groups and over the course of the term, they get to know each other more, then they become more comfortable with interacting in these smaller, more intimate settings. But as I've been teaching over the last decade, I've kind of watched a decline in this, particularly in some students appearing like they just don't care. And some of the peers even saying, I can't get them engaged, they just don't care. But I've spent enough time with these students to get to know that many of them just don't know that they should care. And they certainly don't know how or why to care. And so I spend a great deal of time really trying to tease that out and trying to lead them toward just this really, I think, a monumental step in their learning, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the actual course material. It's this whole other side thing, this life coaching thing that I have to do in my college classrooms as well. So on the other side, I couldn't help connect this to the notion of living without purpose or passion, which also applies to not knowing what our purpose is in a given season. So often we go through life without a sense of purpose and don't even realize two things. Number one, a lack of awareness just has us going through the motions in everyday life without even recognizing this is the cause of the numbness that we feel. I work with so many coaching students and so many people in my everyday life that talk about that one universal thing. I feel like I'm numb. I feel like I'm walking in this thick fog. And I'm not talking about like people who are just stuck in a grieving process, which I talk about in Warrior Sister Cut Yourself Free, my self-help book. There's information on that in the show notes below. If that pertains to you and might be helpful, go ahead and check that out. But what I'm talking about here is this just sense of fog that we walk around and we really just can't put our finger on it. Like we just don't know. Why are we walking around in this numbness and this fog? And this also speaks to the low self-esteem that festers in this foggy numbness. So number two, our sense of freedom and power come from living in our purpose, not in sitting back and just being idle. I know, while it might seem like the meaning of freedom itself is that, oh, I have the choice to just do absolutely nothing at all. And yes, sometimes it is good to do nothing. And we call that rest. You're not supposed to exist in a state of rest. We're not created to exist in a state of rest. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the body, if you're talking about the mind, or you're talking about the spirit. All three of those things cannot remain in a state of rest. They will literally become sedentary. And in that lack of activity, things start to die. Our bodies actually start to break down and age prematurely if we don't move them and we don't engage them in ways. So why not engage them in ways that you actually enjoy? Keeping yourself vital. And that's just the physical end. You think about the mind as well. Some people think, oh, once I learn this thing, I will arrive and then I don't have to do any more work. But the thing is life is a continuous journey of learning new things and learning new knowledge and adapting. Like sometimes we have to do away with not really old knowledge, but we have to do away with old thinking. And so in order to evolve and grow and mature, we have to learn and expose new thinking and new ways to live maybe the same exact life and maybe the same exact environment. And then we talk about the spiritual end. If we let our spiritual end become dormant, then that starts to kind of prematurely age everything around us, not just in the figurative sense, but in the literal sense. Without that really clear connection with the self and the higher power, our connection to the earth, and all these different things, it really slows us down. So we're supposed to feed our spiritual life however we have decided to do that. So if you have a faith-based lifestyle, then there are so many ways that you can incorporate spiritual nourishment and spiritual growth and spiritual nurturing. And, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do. Maybe I'll talk one episode just specifically about that, but I don't want to go off on that tangent right now. I'll come back to a few of them that worked for me recently in a few minutes when I get into my epiphany awakening moment. So doing nothing at all long term takes this already giant void that we carry within and it makes it bigger. It's not productive, and it definitely compounds all of these negative feelings that we carry around when we do become idle and we do walk around with no sense of direction and no sense of purpose. So it becomes clear to us when we self-reflect and do some important things to heighten our awareness. So I talk about this a lot in previous episodes about how important it is to self-reflect. You can't come up with a plan. You can't take any steps. You can't put any things in motion or put anything in place if you don't self-reflect first. Nobody's going to come along, not even God is going to come along and just tell you this is exactly what you have to do. No person's going to do that for you. And here's the template. It's all laid out and all the pieces are there. And you just have to step into it and you're just going to thrive and you're just going to blossom. Like life doesn't come like a garden kit already put together for you. Sorry if that's what you were looking for. But this self-reflection is really that first step into heightening our awareness so that we can take the next steps. So meditation and prayer are vital to my quality of life, and they're vital to a lot of individuals who I work with as well. Putting ourselves in the right space and surrounding ourselves with our people is also something that's super important. I've been coaching someone recently and kind of walking them through this very concept about sometimes you need to get around your people. And sometimes you're in an environment and you think this is where I'm supposed to be. And then you start to spend time in that environment and all the things that you said, I don't want to be in this, my future environment, or this is something that I'm just not going to tolerate, or these are things I just don't seek in a workplace or in my relationships. And all of a sudden, all these things keep happening, and all the characters in this environment are inhabiting all of these things, and it's like overwhelming. So for this individual that I've been kind of coaching through something, that's exactly the case that she's in right now, is she's getting buried by this overwhelm of all these different areas of things that are really disappointing because she really thought she was stepping into something that was going to lead to more long-term types of interactions and relationships. And now she's realizing, like, these aren't my people. And so what do I do with that? Doesn't mean that we necessarily are in a position to just run away from it and like, okay, that's fine. Now I'm going to go and start all over again. Sometimes we're there until we can replace that situation, especially when it's like, I don't know, a job, for instance. We can't just stop working because we have car payments and house payments and utilities and cell phone bills, and we want things and we have to eat and we have all these things that we have to worry about. And so that just means then maybe you go back to the self-reflecting, you go back to those plans, you hit the job market again, and you aggressively seek to replace this situation that you don't feel is serving your purpose anymore, or you don't feel is serving you or helping you work toward your purpose and thrive within your purpose anymore. So sometimes we have to make those decisions, and this is something I have been kind of talking about with this particular client. So aside from putting ourselves in those right places with the right people, we need opportunities to thrive in these fitting environments. Not to say that you can continually be like playing chess and like, okay, I need an opportunity here. But if you do all of this stuff and you put yourself in the right places and you surround yourself with the right support network and the right people, these opportunities will start to come about. And also, here's something else that I've always taught my daughters, and I teach my students as well, no matter what teaching space I'm in, is sometimes the opportunities aren't necessarily present, they don't exist yet, and it never hurts to ask someone, to offer, hey, I have this idea, I've been really trying to branch out in this area, or I'm really trying to do this, I think we could team up here. And I gotta tell you, like 75% of the time I get a yes, and about half of the time it actually pans out. I would say that if you ask and you get a 75% interest that turns into a 50% or more opportunities, that's a good monetization. You know, any marketing expert would say if you can convert half of your access points into an actual relationship, into an actual opportunity, that's actually really good results. So I would call this, in the scheme of marketing ourselves for looking for those opportunities, a huge win. And again, what does it hurt? They say no. So something else that happens when we put ourselves in the right environment and we surround ourselves with the right people is we gain invaluable insights from trusted people with knowledge and the wisdom to know how to speak into our lives to help us practically apply some of this into our current situation. So think about that. I'm talking about wise counsel that comes in many forms. So structured therapy, where you're just going to your therapist or your counselor, or maybe you have a mentor, or maybe you're just in a good school environment and you have advisors, or you go to clubs and then you also have the advisors that facilitate those club settings, or you have a job and you have colleagues that are above you that are kind of teaching you the ropes, or all of these things are beneficial to us. Even like putting ourselves in good spiritual communities where we're getting the right spirit guided support, like that's invaluable. If you don't have that, you can keep going through the motions. I found myself going through that recently, and then I'm just like, I don't know why I can't just keep going through the motions, but it's because I'm not having that spiritual fellowship that is critical to my well-being. And so now I'm like, okay, let me take a few steps back here and figure out how to get this back in my life. So this brings me to my recent struggle with not fully knowing and understanding my purpose in this current season. Over the past year, I've made some really big changes in my life, starting with launching this podcast. I have also been working on my PhD research, and I've been neglecting that lately. And prior to these two things, I spent a lot of time registering Restore Your Inner Warrior as a trademark and then setting up the brand. So if you think about that is like an umbrella over all these other things that I'm doing. And the podcast falls under that. My coaching falls under it. Even some of my teaching and the topics that I bring into my classrooms fall under it. So over the past few months, though, I got distracted. I wasn't giving my full attention to establishing my purpose plans that align with these intended outcomes and goals. So not only did I fall off the track here, I also allowed other well-intentioned people in my life to lead me in other directions that were taking me away from fulfilling my purpose. So sometimes well-intentioned people will kind of see you struggling through something and they'll just be like, oh, I have solutions for you. They don't want to see you suffer. They don't want to see you going without. And they see things and then they come to you and say, you should try this, or you should do this, you should seek this opportunity. So I found myself in one of those instances, and not to say that the opportunity one way or the other isn't something that I should be looking at. I'm saying that I allowed it to derail me. I allowed it to get me completely off track. So I want to distinguish that right now. So recently I have been experiencing the effects of this distracting situation that hasn't led me anywhere productive. I have found myself going to great lengths to show that I'm worthy, which is a really dangerous trap. You're worthy. I know my value. I know I'm valuable. So to get in that trap, I just am like, I can't believe you fell for that. So that was mistake number one. I started filling my time with learning things that would make me a better asset to this particular situation and opportunity. So it's I have a wealth of experience. I have a wealth of knowledge and strategies and skills. They're all marketable. They're all make me a valuable asset to these different teams. And I apply them in these different projects and teams that I work on. It's one of the best parts of my freelance work because no project is the same. And every single time I go into these situations and work with these teams of individuals, I always sharpen existing tools and end up coming up with more because I'm just that person who's I don't know how to do that yet, but I'll figure it out. Or I don't know if that's possible, but I'm sure we can figure something out. And I love that. That's part of what I love about a lot of the work that I do is really kind of wrestling with the complexities of things and figuring out the puzzle. Figuring out there is a way that this thing that you really, really want can be done. And just because it's not accessible to us, the process, or maybe the process doesn't exist yet, or nobody realizes that this thing is even a thing that people want. There's all different reasons why things don't exist or why you don't know how to do them. And it's just a matter of sometimes figuring out and learning systems and then figuring out how to make those systems work to produce exactly what you or your team is seeking. And so here I found myself trying to train myself on some things and feeling really stupid because sometimes things are too technical and you're trying to self-train and they're too technical. And if you don't have the right foundational skills and knowledge for the basic language elements, you will just feel like you're spinning your wheels in the mud and you're getting farther and farther and deeper stuck. And it really makes you start to feel hopeless and stupid. I was feeling so stupid. And here, the interesting part is I spent a ton of time, working on learning a particular software package that I already know how to do these things through other software and other applications, that I'm pretty good at using these other applications. And here I was saying, nope, this is the industry standard. This is what everybody wants you to know. So let me take this time. And as I was like, let me take this time, I'm waiting to hear back from them. I'm in this limbo space, and I totally stopped doing all these other things that I should have been doing with that free time. And not to say that I didn't gain some new skills, but I could have spent the greater amount of this time doing what my plan was to fulfill these different roles that were leading me toward fulfilling my purpose. And so I rationalized how these digressions were enriching me personally and creatively. This distraction and digression was good because when would I ever give myself time to learn this package and blah, 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 all this nonsense that I was telling myself. And meanwhile, I'm becoming kind of depressed and hopeless and just, again, feeling like an idiot. And when you start to feel like you just suck, it doesn't just affect your learning capacity in that actual activity, it like rolls over into every other area of your life. So I started to feel like, gosh, I'm not that good at anything. And then you start to believe all these negative things, which is just a really dangerous landslide to put yourself in. So here is where I found myself. And there was a moment in this landslide where I was like, oh my God, like, you start to lose your footing and you just feel like I have lost my way completely here. And then I was like, oh my God, distraction. Distraction comes in many forms, and it often destroys your true purpose. I'm going to say that again. Distraction will come in many forms, and it often will destroy your true purpose. And distractions, you can think like, oh, they're not destructive. They can come in a bunch of little ones, and enough little ones added together will keep you never on task. Just raise a bunch of little kids, which was my purpose for years. And you will know what I mean by a bunch of little distractions that will keep you from serving your real purpose. And it doesn't mean that some of those little things that I was doing as a mother weren't part of my purpose. Kids come with a lot of distractions that can destroy everything if you don't get in front of them or get a handle on them. So in the midst of this, I reminded myself, like, I'm a good catch. That's not ego talking. I know I'm a good catch. I know that I'm a hard worker. I know that I show up, and when I show up all the way, and I give things my everything. I don't say I'm going to do things and not follow through. I'd rather not commit to something I learned from a very wise mentor years ago. It's better to not commit and then just show up, like you don't know if you can make it, than to say you're going to be there and never show up. I've learned over the years, it's better to just not give your word on something, because then you also diminish your word, which is a whole other thing that you don't want to do to your relationships. I also know my value, and I know that I add value to every project and team that I'm on. Like, I come with that attitude. I also put foot to practice. And kind of getting back to what I was just talking about like putting all that time into trying to train myself so that I was the full package in this situation, is that we add skills on an as-needed basis, especially in the workforce. So if we're doing different jobs or we're doing freelance work and we're joining different teams, if we don't have a particular skill set, then we realize, oh, they need this for this particular thing, and now I have to invest in that. We should never feel like we have to come to a table having it all together, having all the skills. Like, that doesn't even exist. I don't care if you sit, and I have sat as an interim, like I've sat as a fractional CFO or a fractional CMO, and I've sat with these executives, and none have had every single one of those qualities. That's why they hire other people. That's why you have a team. You might be the one who has the most money. You might be the one who has the most innovative ideas. You might be the one who has the skill set. Maybe you have a combination of those things. And one person's stronger in this area and that area. That's the beauty of collaboration, is we bring it all together. We bring under one house all of our skills. And so if somebody's trying to make you feel like you have to have it all, this is distraction's number one lie to get us off track. It's an easy trap too. Just make you believe that you don't have it all so that you do not deserve to be at this table. Lie number one. The other lie that distraction will do is will convince us it's for our own good. I mean, let that sink in. Distraction convincing you the distraction itself is for your own good. And then fulfilling purpose doesn't come from doing the right things for the wrong reasons. So sometimes along the same lines there is that we think like, oh, we're doing the things that we want to do in order to be operating in our purpose. And, these things I've already kind of meditated, I've already kind of planned out. These are the types of things that I have to be doing to fulfill my purpose or to get me one step closer to fulfilling my purpose. So then we rationalize, like, even if we're doing it for the wrong reasons, well, this is on the list. This is on the to-do list. Stop doing that. If you're doing something for the wrong reason, it's wrong. Period. And again, the longer you keep focusing on that way, the farther you're being led away from your real purpose or from the task at hand in front of you. So one thing that I noticed fade away from me quickly during this whole process, and it's just the process of maybe like 6 weeks. So it's not a ton of time, but 6 weeks is a long time. I started to feel my passion just completely fade. That thing that like just energizes you doesn't have a real explanation for why you feel energized, or you feel like it's not a burden to have to go and do this hard work, to have to do this particular thing. That was completely faded. Like I almost couldn't see it anymore. I definitely didn't see it when I was looking in the mirror. It was not reflecting back to me. And I was like, wow, I've dulled. And I have a whole list of emotions that came along with that as well. Like, again, I talked about feeling hopeless and feeling depressed and feeling stupid and feeling unworthy of being at that table and being taken serious and, just all the whole list of just negative emotions that I felt. I was feeling like I was being buried by them, and it was making it really hard to function. And it was also making me feel this like anxiousness. And I'm not the type of person who really struggles with anxiousness. And when I admit that I was feeling anxious, that is a big deal. It's not something that I normally deal with. And so this anxiousness was affecting my sleep patterns. It was making me not want to do any of the physical types of activities that normally bring me happiness and joy or just are good for my body to move. It was making me kind of self-isolate and close off from the world. So just short of only having to go to class or only having to get on a phone call with someone, I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody, including the people I live with. And everybody was starting to notice, like, what is wrong with you? And again, sometimes when you're in that fog, you can't see clearly. And the more and more you feel buried under the avalanche of all these things, it's super hard to like get a grasp on things. It takes some serious attention to actually be able to find your way out and see your way out of that. So I woke up the other day wondering, why am I still sitting on this train that has taken me past my destined stop and is taking me farther and farther away from where I'm supposed to be? So I decided figuratively to get off that train and to spend the time now moving forward, finding my way back to the place my purpose is already waiting for me. So I already have things in place. I already have plans. I already have the meditation there. I already had things that were going. Maybe they weren't going well enough, fast enough. That's life. But they were in the works. They were doing what they were supposed to do, and I was supposed to continue doing what I was supposed to do, that I planned out and said, I know if I do this, this will work. I'm working with a coach on one particular thing. And, I just completely got off track in every possible way that I could. And it's funny, I've been meditating on this train analogy. I've even brought it into a few previous episodes. And now, just the other day, I heard Jay Shetty make a similar reference. He said to get off the train as soon as you realize you've missed your stop. Get off at the very next stop. Because the longer you stay on this train going the wrong way, heading away from your destined stop, the longer it will take you to get back to where you need to be. That's a really, really good way to look at it. So perhaps you feel like you're going the wrong way too. If this speaks to you, get off that train at the next stop and catch the next train heading back in the right direction. There are a few tried and tested actions that I took to get myself back on track. I know I talk about this all the time, but the number one thing is I reviewed the plans I already made earlier this year, and I traced my way back to them, which meant I wrote some stuff down. So I have some things written down in my journal, in different notebooks that I'm working from, and I also create vision boards. So these things are really kind of like, I like them. They make me feel good to see them, but they're also very functional. So I have these vision boards that certain things are on that help me keep the very clear vision in my head of what I'm trying to do. And some of the things, maybe not just what I'm trying to do, but also what I'm trying to accomplish, what that end goal might look like. And these are, again, just loose vision types of things, but it's really prophetic when we start to put those things down and we start to take ownership of them and we start to believe that they're going to pass before they've ever passed. There's something really cool and supernatural that happens when we do that. So I traced my way back to where I left off. So writing things down and creating these vision boards is really a secret to my success. Because not only are you committing something, it's almost like you're making a covenant with yourself. You're also putting it down, and then when you forget things, like we're going to forget things. When you forget things, you can go back and look at the finer details. They're all there. The more detailed you make your notes, the easier you're going to figure out what that little thing is that you're missing. Or maybe you're like, I thought I was doing this right. I thought I was trying this right. And then you go back and realize like, oh my gosh, right, I was going to do this particular thing, or I was going to reach out to this particular person. And then boom, you're able to go back, and these will help you get back on track and they will guide you. So I highly recommend both of these strategies if you haven't already tried implementing them in your life. Number 2, I roughed out smaller, actionable steps to take during the next month. That's it. So I roughed out, I'm looking at just December right now. I noted what I hope to begin next month, which also marks a new year, but I just fractioned them. So I was like, okay, what do I need to do right now? What can I start doing to get myself back on track, to start doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing right now, making those small steps, and then thinking about, okay, then what am I going to be looking forward to in January? And then also just to start meditating on the larger picture here of a whole new year. And I don't have to commit any of that right now. I can be meditating on that and thinking about it as I'm working through and getting back on track in December, because what I don't want to do is overwhelm myself and plan out everything right now while I'm also just trying to take those small actionable steps that are going to produce good fruit. So I don't want to overwhelm myself with like, oh my gosh, the harvest season. I just want to till the ground right now and produce good fruit. So then the third thing I did was that I got to work. I just put steps to action. So when you sit there and you go back and you figure it out and you start to put plans together, even if you don't have the whole thing planned out, again, you're trying to set yourself to take small, actionable steps. Now you have to do that. So I spent this whole week and I was like, okay, what is going on? Let me rethink all of this. And so I spent kind of all day Tuesday, like fanning out the blueprints of what I want to do. And then I was like, okay, now Wednesday, you're going to start to get to work. You're going to start getting back on track. You're going to get back on the right train, head in the right direction, and you're going to figure it out. And in just a few days, I felt my passion returning as my purpose was coming into better view. This whole process has been very healing to me, and it's also given me better clarity, which has boosted my confidence. So that's another interesting thing that I haven't really spent a lot of time talking about, is how clarity really boosts confidence. So we'll talk about that in coming episodes. One of the next steps in fulfilling my purpose is to open up my one-on-one coaching after the new year. So if you're looking for some TLC and personalized guidance as you discover your own purpose, Keep an eye out for the open sessions beginning in January. I can't wait to work with you as you step into a new year, new skin, and renewed you. Well, girl, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, don't forget to follow my channel and share it with girlfriends who also want to restore their self-worth and confidence. If you haven't already, consider joining my Facebook group of women just like you, the Restore Your Inner Warrior Sisterhood. Here's a safe space to get tips, share stories, and find community support. And if this podcast inspired you, consider leaving a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. As you go through your day, may your empowered spirit, heart, and mind guide you. Catch new episodes every Saturday. Ciao.